usually, unless you're sitting in traffic. Green means go. Can you hear me, Dad? No? What?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Not true.
Okay, good. Well, we'll do the best we can. I appreciate everybody coming back. Love seeing all these kids here this morning. What I want to do, Karen, let's adjust our schedule by 10 minutes, okay? And I'll take it off the back end, the last presentation, okay? And we'll make that last presentation really fast one. Even though it's pretty important, we'll make it fast. Okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to sit in here, we're going to talk about dinosaurs and fossils. You're going to go in the back in just a minute, some of you, and you're going to look at fossils, okay? You're going to handle them. I've got back there a big bone that came out of a dinosaur. So you're going to get to pick it up and hopefully not throw it at people, okay? So try not to do that. So what's going to happen is when I'm done, if you're in K through third grade, and we can adjust that if needed, you'll go with Miss Karen when we're done with this lesson, okay? And then after that, we'll have another one, and she and I can coordinate that. So let's talk about fossils. Let's talk about rocks. Let's talk about dinosaurs for just a moment. And maybe first time to use a Kindle as my notes. Let's see. There we go. So if you picked up a book about dinosaurs, how would the book start? What would be the first words?
It would be about the evolutionary order of dinosaurs.
Yeah. Anybody else? How would it start?
You'd probably say something about dinosaurs lived millions of years ago.
Every single book just about starts out with the same line. Apologetics Press, by the way, does sell some books that don't say this. So does Answers in Genesis. And Karen's got some in the back that you can look at, which is awesome. So around 66 million years ago, land-based dinosaurs died out. That's how this book starts, okay? This is an excerpt from a book you can purchase on Amazon. All these books start out the same way, millions and millions and millions of years ago. I don't believe dinosaurs lived millions of years ago. I believe that dinosaurs lived a lot closer than that. So let's talk about dinosaurs a little bit this morning. What were dinosaurs like?
They were like, they had legs, a huge body, and a tail
Yeah?
with a mouthful of teeth.
Okay. Huge bodies, big tails, and a mouthful of teeth. Have y'all ever seen like any of the Jurassic Park movies? Yeah? They kind of make dinosaurs look scary, don't they? Anything else about dinosaurs we think about?
They were like scaly skin.
Some of them had really scaly skin. What you got?
They were mostly reptilian.
Mostly reptilian. Good. Absolutely terrifying. Would you want a dinosaur sneaking up on you in the backyard? Yeah? No? Okay, you got carnivores. If you're not a carnivore, what are you? Herbivore. And if you eat both, do you know what you are? Omnivore. Great. What you got? There's many different kinds, right? So I kind of classify all of them together. You got dinosaur-like creatures that flew in the air. You got them in the ocean. And you got them on land. I put them all kind of together in one group. Technically incorrect, but it makes it easier on me, okay? Let's talk about dinosaurs for a minute. The very first discovery of a dinosaur was in 1822. Seems like a really long time ago, but in human history, that's like yesterday, okay? 1822, the iguanodon was discovered. The name simply means iguana-like teeth. Here's a picture of what an iguanodon would look like. Now, that is huge, isn't it? That's a big creature. But we've got creatures that big that walk around. What's an animal you think that would be similar in size to that? What? A T-Rex? Well, one that you might see today if you went to the zoo. An elephant. So dinosaurs are huge, but they're not so big that we don't have animals that are similar to that around today, at least for some of them. In 1842, the word dinosaur was created. It means fearfully great lizard. What do you think they called dinosaurs before 1842? If you lived in the 1600s, what would you call a dinosaur? Sit on it. We'll get back to it. Okay? I believe that there was something that dinosaurs might have been called. So what's a fossil? I'm not even looking at my notes anymore. I'm trying to hurry through this. What's a fossil? What? Okay, something that's not alive anymore, right? It doesn't have to be an animal that no longer exists, right? But something that's not alive anymore, and maybe their bones, something happened to it. What happened to it?
Over the years, it gets fossilized.
It gets fossilized, yeah?
The fossil is hard like rocks, so it
There you go. Yeah. So what happens with fossils is you got to have certain things happen, okay? There's different types of fossils. We'll mention that in a minute. But a fossil is traces or the remains of an animal, plant, or an insect. If you go into a coal mine, you see a lot of fossils of plants. There's a lot of ferns in coal mines. We've got some back there, maybe? Good. And it's a rare event. Not everything fossilizes. If an animal dies in your backyard, let's hope it doesn't, okay? But let's say an animal died in your backyard. What would happen to the animal? What?
might be a normal bone or
Yeah. If it just sat there for a long time, all the skin, all the meat would decay. What else would happen to it?
It would become like dirt, basically.
Probably. What else? Do y'all have any, like, owls? Do y'all have any hawks that fly around? Are there dogs that roam around sometimes and raccoons? What do? They eat it, right? They take it away and it gets destroyed. So it really doesn't happen all that frequently that an animal would become a fossil. It takes the right events. It takes quick burial, right? If you throw a log down in the yard, what happens to the log?
It doesn't burn.
Do what?
It sits there.
It sits there, but what happens to it over time? What happened to the tree that fell in our backyard 6 years ago that I never completely cleaned up? Yeah, it decayed. And animals ate it, insects ate on it, and everything. It decays, right? So, and something that was once alive has to be buried really quickly. Air has to get cut off to it. Water begins to rush in. The minerals that the water carries, which is what a rock is going to be made of, then hardens in the animal. The bone decays, leaving the fossil behind. Amber, have you ever seen, if you've seen Jurassic Park, that's part of the Jurassic Park movie, an insect gets stuck in amber. We don't have one of those, do we? Got pictures. We need to get one. I'll get on eBay or somewhere and find us one. We need one. How long does it take for a fossil to form? What do y'all think evolutionists would say? What?
Millions of years.
Yeah, over long periods of time. But what we've discovered is it doesn't take that long. This is from Bible.ca. It's a website that I think Brother in Christ maintains, maybe up in Canada, maybe. But here's a picture of a fossilized leather hat. Now, if evolutionists are right, and it takes thousands, millions of years for this to form, that doesn't make sense, does it? Is that a caveman's hard hat? Or what about a prehistoric cowboy? This is a cowboy boot that has a fossilized leg bone in it. What do those prove to you? If there is a leather hat that is fossilized and a cowboy's leg bone is fossilized, what does that prove? It doesn't take too long for fossils to form. It just takes the right environment. What year did Mount St. Helens erupt? Do you remember? It was the 80s. Anybody remember when Mount St. Helens erupted? Way back then in the 1980s, again, Stone Age, right? Mount St. Helens was a volcano that erupted up in the northwest. And lots of stuff happened when it erupted. They learned when Mount St. Helens erupted that when catastrophic events happen, like major events happen, fossils can form quickly. Land can change quickly, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So dinosaurs are real creatures that really did exist. All over the world, dinosaur graveyards have been found. I've only got 2 quotes here because it would take a long time to go through them all, and I've got them in another lesson. This is in Utah and Colorado. Have any of y'all ever been to a dinosaur graveyard? No? If you go out west, please do it and bring me back stuff. I love to get rocks from out west. It says this: after a seasonal flood, this scene of 145 million years ago, is based on clues found in the rock face behind you. Carcasses brought downstream by the fast-moving muddy water were washed onto a sandbar. Some were buried completely by tons of sand, their bones preserved in a nearly perfect state. So what does that tell you happened? Don't give the Bible answer, but what happened?
What it says, it's saying that long ago, like millions of years
Yeah.
ago, basically dead dinosaurs.
Yeah.
washed away.
They all got washed up by a flood. There was a flash flood that happened, right? Here's another one. This is from the BBC. Hypsilophodons, I tried to get it right, have only been found on the Isle of Wight. So you're over in the European area. Paleontologist Dr. Dave Matrell of Portsmouth University feels that as many as 5,000 Hypsilophodon specimens exist on the island, all of which drowned when trapped in a tremendous flash flood. So they were buried quickly. They were buried by water. They were covered up with dirt. Air was cut off. As the animals decayed, water went in. The bones were fossilized. So here's what's kind of cool. All over the world, there were these flash floods where all of these animals died and were buried all at once, and they fossilized. Now, hand down, can you think of a time that might have happened? Yeah. There were flash floods all over the world, they're saying, evolutionists are. Millions of years ago, they say. Well, Pangea, we'll get to that in the last lesson. Genesis 7, 1 through 12. A flood, which gets to the Pangea, okay? All the continents fit together like a puzzle piece, that's real. That really happened, right? But Noah, when Noah built the ark and a flood came, there was waters covering the whole face of the earth. And a lot of creatures died and were buried rather quickly by these waters. It explains how you have dinosaur graveyards. So, evolutionists would tell you that dinosaurs evolved over 165 million years ago. That's bogus. The fossil record does not prove that. You don't see evolution in the fossil record. If evolution is true, you should start with these very basic animals, and it should build up, and you should be able to watch the evolutionary process unfold through the rocks, and you don't see that. The Bible tells you that dinosaurs were made on what day? Day what? When would a T-Rex have been made? What day of creation?
6 days.
Sixth day. Okay. What about a Ichthyosaurus? Who knows what that is? Mm-hmm.
So it would be the
Probably would have been on the 5th day. Right? So the Bible teaches us that dinosaurs would have been made on day 5 and day 6, completely formed, and the fossil record bears that out. So what were dinosaurs like? There were dinosaurs that were massive. No doubt about it. Argentinosaurus was huge. Giganosaurus is called a Giganosaurus for a reason. It is huge. The Argentinosaurus weighed 100 tons. That is massive. But the largest blue whale that's been found today weighed 194 tons. We have animals alive today that are bigger than the animals that we're discovering from fossil record. Were they all enormous, angry, destructive creatures? No. Some of them were only 3 pounds. If you've got a small dog, how many of y'all have a small dog at home? There were dinosaurs that were the same size as your small dog. So here's some animals. This is a T-Rex, right? T-Rexes, we were always told when I was younger, were big, angry, destructive. They killed everything. T-Rexes were the vultures of lizards. Scientists now believe that T-Rexes just roamed the earth and ate things that were already dead. We don't know that for sure, but 40 feet long, 6.5 tons, still huge, but he ate meat that was probably already killed. This is a Giganosaurus, 43 feet long, weighed 8 tons. Its brain was the size of a banana. Now, think about this. Now, banana's that's decent size. But if you're 8 tons and 43 feet long, your brain should be huge. It has a little bitty, teeny tiny brain. Poor guy. Spinosaurus. What's cool about him? If you have dinosaur figurines at home that you play with, you probably got one of these. These guys are cool. They've got a sail on their back. They believe was covered with skin, a crocodile-shaped head. Pretty cool lizard. Pretty cool dinosaur. The Troodon. Now, the Troodon was thought to be one of the smartest of dinosaurs. If you watch Jurassic Park, which dinosaur was the most dangerous? Which one? The what? Stegosaur. Okay. Jurassic World. Either way. Though, you know which dinosaur I would be scared of? And I can't remember what they call them, but the little bitty ones. The raptors. Those are the ones that I would be scared of because they're super fast. You wouldn't see them coming, and they're super dangerous. This guy is 6 feet long, 3 feet high. He's not that big. If you stood him on his feet, he would be shorter than me. But he's super smart, and he's got really sharp teeth. I would be afraid of this guy, Troodon. I will tell you this, depending on who you look at, some people put feathers on this dinosaur. Some people don't. Evolutionists like to put feathers on a T-Rex. Do you know why they like to do that?
Because T-Rex, they believe T-Rex were T-Rex is closely related to chickens.
They want to make T-Rex related to a chicken. Why do they want to make a T-Rex related to a chicken? Because they believe one evolved from the other, right? They want to put feathers on everything because then they could say, well, look, it evolved. Fossil record doesn't bear out the evolution. Herbivores. Herbivores eat what? Plants. Instead of sharp teeth, they mostly have flat teeth. Brachiosaurus. That's what I've got in back there, isn't it? No, I got a sauropod. I got a sauropod vertebrae. You've got a vertebrae back there that you can pick up that came out of an animal like this. And you can hold it, you can look at it, you can touch it. I want you to pick it up and feel it, okay? Don't throw it. Hold it and feel it. 80 feet long, 40 feet high, 40 tons. Its brain is 10,000 times smaller than yours. Maybe not the most intelligent of creatures, right? Argentinosaurus weighed over 100 tons. It's thought to be a gentle dinosaur, unless he stepped on you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can see this guy walking around. Its head be poking out above the trees. Bigger than a giraffe for sure. Triceratops. A lot of people, this is their favorite, right? What's your favorite dinosaur? What? Yeah? T-Rex. What's your favorite? The raptor? The Triceratops is a lot of kids' favorite because it kind of looks like a rhinoceros, except it has how many horns usually? 3 horns. There have been some Triceratops fossils that have been found in the United States. Really cool. About the size of a dump truck. I'd hate to have him run up on me. Had a big brain. This guy, Ankylosaurus, is one of my favorites. They have found fully preserved Ankylosaurus fossils. This is cool. I believe it was up north in Canada. 30 feet long, 4 tons, the size of a hippo. Looks kind of like a mixture between a lizard and an armadillo, a little bit, right? Pterosaurs. How many of you ever had a bird poop on your car? Kind of nasty, right? Imagine one of these pooping on your car. You'd have to wash the whole car, right? Pterodactyls. Everybody knows about pterodactyls. It basically looks like a huge bat. Okay? No feathers. Has a skin membrane. I want y'all to pronounce this guy. How do you say his name? I can't say it. Say it again. Okay. I'm not going to argue because I can't say it. It is the size of a small plane. Can you imagine a bird creature flying over your head the size of a small plane? That's crazy. In the ocean, the Elasmosaurus, 48 feet long, 26 feet of its length was in its neck. Adults, what does that creature remind you of? Looks like the Loch Ness Monster, right? I'm not saying this is what the Loch Ness Monster originally was, But it is entirely possible that hundreds of years ago, somebody saw one of these poke its head out of the water, and the legend of the Loch Ness Monster was born, and then it died out. Very possible. Okay? Here is a Kronosaurus. Hard to see on the screen. I need to kill this. I'm sorry. 30 feet long, sharp teeth, most feared predator in the water. What does he kind of look like? What?
An alligator.
He does. He looks like a mixture between an alligator and a dolphin. But this guy looks like a dolphin on crack. That's the best way I can describe it. They have huge eyes. This guy scares me, right? Sometimes they were small. Sometimes they found fossils that are 70 feet long, have massive eyes, really sharp teeth, really long mouth. This guy looks scary to me, but it looks like a dolphin a little bit, but it's not. It's a ichthyosaurus, right? So some of these creatures lived in the sea, some of them on land, some of them flew in the air. Does the Bible talk about dinosaurs?
Yes.
According to evolution, it shouldn't, right? Why, if evolution is true, why should there be no dinosaurs and humans together? What do they teach?
Dinosaurs died out.
Dinosaurs died out long before human beings came along. For evolution to be true, they've got to separate human beings and dinosaurs. Dinosaurs lived, dinosaurs died, humans evolved. That's what they teach. Hundreds of years ago, the word dinosaur did not exist. You're not allowed to answer this. He's heard this twice, 3 times, maybe more. If the word dinosaur didn't exist, what do you think they might have called these massive creatures?
Leviathans?
In the Bible, there's a leviathan, there's another animal. Do you remember what the other one's called? A behemoth and a leviathan. What? Well, maybe. What's another creature that kind of looks like a dinosaur, but we don't call it a dinosaur? Iguana? What? What is it? Dragons. We'll get to that in a second. The behemoth found in Job chapter 40. I'm not going to read the text. If I had more time, I would. But in the book of Job, Job was suffering. He was hurting. He was struggling a lot. And God showed Job a bunch of animals. Ostriches and oxes and all kinds of birds and animals. And God's basic message to Job was, hey, Job, I take care of these animals. I can take care of you. I'm in control of the whole world. I've got control over your life too. I've got this, basically what God says. And as God describes all of those animals, God turns around and God says, let me tell you about the behemoth, okay? When the behemoth is described, it talks about having really strong belly muscles, legs that are massive and strong. Some people have read this and they thought, well, maybe it's a hippopotamus. Maybe it's an elephant. But one of the things that God tells Job is that Job, I'll get to that in a second, get ahead of myself. Sumo wrestler. He also has a big, strong belly and big, strong legs, doesn't he? Just because you got a strong belly and strong legs doesn't mean that you fit the description. One of the things that God tells Job is this behemoth swings its tail like a cedar. Does an elephant swing its tail like a cedar? What kind of tail does an elephant have? Itty bitty. The only thing that tail's good for is shooing flies off of its rear end, right? What about a hippo? Does it have a big tail? Not really. Kind of looks like a dog's tail a little bit, the way it's shaped. So these two animals, they don't have a tail that swings like a cedar. But I know something that does. A dinosaur. This is a Brachiosaurus. Does it have a strong belly? Yes. Does it have big, strong legs? Yes. Could it swing its tail like a cedar tree? Absolutely. I'd hate to get whipped by that tail. That fits the picture. Now, God tells Job about another animal, and it's a leviathan. Now, the leviathans is a little bit different than the other creatures, because the leviathan, anybody remember how he's described? What?
Large, fire-breathing.
It describes him almost as if he's breathing fire. Kind of like what we would say people think a dragon did. Describes him as maybe living in the water. The water boils in his presence, and really scary creature the way he's described. Now, do y'all know of any animals that breathe fire today? What?
I was gonna say Godzilla.
Godzilla. Okay, any real animals that breathe fire? I don't know of any, right? Can you think of some animals that maybe do some pretty crazy stuff? What? That might be like that? The bombardier beetle, he's heard this before, so he has the advantage. What does the bombardier beetle do? Or the bombardier, some people call it bombardier beetle. What does it do?
Sprays this, like, I guess, like gas.
It basically shoots fire out of its rear end, okay? I don't know how else to describe it, but it shoots this jet of gas out that's like shooting fire out of its rear end. So if God says, well, I've got this creature that I've made, and this creature is large and scary and breathes fire, is it possible that something like that was going on? What about flashes of light? Are there any animals today that flash light? What?
Firefly.
Fireflies, lightning bugs. I call them Lucifer bugs because it's Lucifer in and Lucifer Ace that come together that make that happen. They're like flying glow sticks, right? Any other animals that do it? If you go out in West Alabama, I can't remember the name of the place. Can't remember. There's glowworms. You can go into a cave and see glowworms. Anglerfish. Bioluminescence is what we call it. That's not strange, right? I really believe that the Leviathan and the Behemoth were creatures that were real because God describes them right alongside real animals that Job would have encountered. Not some fanciful creature like you see here, but maybe something a little bit more like that. It'd been pretty scary. Job says, look, if you mess with that animal, you won't mess with it again. Got just a couple of minutes. The Bible does talk about dragons. What book you got? Hymns for Worship? Hallelujah, praise Jehovah. Y'all know the song? Hallelujah, praise Jehovah. All ye floods, ye what? Dragons all. The Bible talks about dragons as if they were real creatures. Remember, the word dinosaur didn't exist back then. It is possible that when the Bible mentions dragons, that what it's talking about is really large lizards. What would happen if you took the wing off of a dragon? What would it look like?
It would be a dinosaur.
It'd be a dinosaur, right? It'd be a dinosaur. All those Bible verses that are up there, they all mention dragons. It's not a myth, it's not a fairy tale. There were real creatures that kind of look like that. Okay. Bible describes dinosaurs and humans existing at the same time, and evolutionists agree, I'm not going to give you the quotes, that if they did exist at the same time, that evolution would be debunked. The Bible says that they coexisted. They describe them as coexisting at the same time. Skipping this. Here are some things that were made by men that look a lot like dinosaurs. There's dinosaurs that look like this. I'm just going to show you some pictures. This is the Taylor Trail. It's out in Texas. It has human footprints and dinosaur footprints embedded on top of each other as if the human was actually chasing the dinosaur. If there were dinosaurs in our backyard roaming our woods, what would happen to them? What? People might run away, but you know what I would do? Any of you in here hunt? How cool would it be to go hunting a T-Rex and have it shoulder mounted on your fireplace? That would be awesome. If there were dinosaurs in our backyard, people would hunt them for food and also for sport. Here is a cave drawing out west, and look at the tail that's on the dinosaur. It wasn't until fairly recently that scientists discovered that dinosaurs used their tail for balancing like this, but somebody drew this in a cave hundreds of years ago. Maybe 1,000, probably hundreds, but there it is. These are Inca burial stones. People died, they buried them with these things. And if you look at the picture, notice on this dinosaur, you see the spikes on his back? Back then, supposedly, that was before dinosaurs were discovered as having ever existed. Yet the Incas knew that they existed and were able to describe them. Oh, here's the Doheny expedition again out west of the United States. Look at him. He is standing and balancing on his tail. Somebody knew about this long before we discovered it, modern-wise. Here's the Jules Verne discovery. Somebody was playing with clay and they made these creatures. And you see this dinosaur right here with the big booty? We didn't know until fairly recently that there was a dinosaur with a big booty, but it actually existed. Its tail is huge, real big fat tail. Somebody knew about that before they were discovered. How did they know about them? If we didn't discover dinosaurs until 1822, how did they know that these existed? Somebody saw them and they copied them when they were playing with clay. Yeah.
They were looking where the dinosaurs were.
Again, you take the wings off a dragon, and what do you have? Dinosaurs. This is more for the adults. This is Marco Polo. Marco Polo. He talked about dinosaurs and described them as real creatures. He didn't use the word dinosaur. Of course, it had not been invented yet. History books. Pliny the Elder, 1450. History books from the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s all describe these creatures as real animals. Not fairy tales, but real animals. People lived at the same time as dinosaurs did. Take the wings off, and what do you have?
Dinosaur.
You have a dinosaur. This little box shows human beings hunting a dinosaur. The Nile of Palestinian from 100 BC, before Jesus lived. Humans and dinosaurs living at the same time. Okay? We're going to quit. I will say this. That was a cartoon from when I was a kid. Dinosaurs were scary, but we do a lot of stuff with scary animals. All of these animals would kill you in the wild, but we entertain ourselves with them, right? It's not crazy to think we could live with dinosaurs. Okay, so we're going to quit. This is me just getting through the rest of them. For those of you that are interested, soft tissue blood matrix has been found in dinosaur fossils. Evolutionists tried to squash this news, but many more have been discovered that you can't say they don't exist. Soft tissue should not be in fossils. If the fossils are millions of years old, they couldn't survive. So that's another big proof there. Okay. Karen? If you are in kindergarten through third grade, or if you're pre-K, 4 years old, go with Karen. Anybody that's here that is third grade and down, go with Miss Karen. You'll go to the back. Oh, you're here. Never mind, you're not third grade. So Karen, just adjust the time 10 minutes and move on. Yeah, that works. Do they celebrate them? Yeah. No, I don't guess so. I don't know. I can't speak to that. I wouldn't know. I don't know where Josh is. He's going to have to pull up the next presentation. I don't have it. While he's doing that, we'll talk about the flood later. When the flood happened, the atmosphere of the earth. Oh, there's Josh. The next presentation. The atmosphere of the earth completely changed when the flood happened. You went from a greenhouse all over the world to what we have today. There's probably an ice age that followed the flood and then settling into our pattern today. The atmosphere would have changed the earth so much that these giant creatures would have had a harder time surviving. That's what I believe happened to the dinosaurs. That between human hunting and their environment changing, they were not able to survive and be as big as they are today. But we do have dinosaur creatures around today, don't we? Komodo dragons, alligators, Gila monsters, even green anoles. If you made a green anole be 40 feet long, he'd be a dinosaur, wouldn't he? Those little lizards.
You ever saw a
Garden
garden snake?
snakes?
Yeah, the lime green.
Yeah, make them big.
They remind me of the long neck.
Yeah, I can see that. I actually caught a legless lizard in Florida when I was down there. It was so weird. I've never seen one of those in the wild. Okay, we're going to shift gears. What is this one? Evidence. Okay. So, I want you to imagine that you've been accused of a crime. You're innocent. You didn't do it. Okay, but you've been accused of a crime. You go to court. The charges have been brought against you. The prosecution makes their case. There are no witnesses and there is no evidence, but they're accusing you of doing something wrong. How do you feel? You've been accused of stealing $500,000 from a bank. You robbed a bank. You didn't. They're accusing you of robbing a bank. There is no video evidence. Nobody saw you do it. You know you didn't do it, but you've been accused of robbing the bank. They arrest you, they take you to court, and they put you on trial. And the prosecution talks about how you robbed the bank, and you had to be the person, and we know you robbed the bank, and they just kept saying, we know he did it, we know he did it, we know he did it. And then the jury goes back, and for about 2 or 3 minutes, they talk about it, they come back, and they say, guilty as charged. How would you feel? What? Horrible. Sad? Would you get angry? I'd be angry. Have y'all ever been accused of doing something you didn't do? You got parents probably all the time, right? I know you made that mess. We talk about Robert when we went on vacation and down to Key West. There's this Robert the Doll thing, and I bought a Robert Did It magnet because when in my house nobody claims they did anything. Who broke the plate in the kitchen? I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I look around. I'm like, then who did it? Who broke the plate? Robert did it, right? So that's our joke. Right. So you've been accused of a crime. There's no evidence. They found you guilty. You're going to jail for the rest of your life, all because somebody said you did it. There's no evidence. When it comes to creation and evolution, when it comes to evolution especially, that's the way I feel. I feel like there is no evidence to support the theory of evolution. Guys, this is a technical class. This is going to be the harder class. But y'all are smart enough, I know we can handle it, okay? So, this is what evolution believes. In the beginning, there was nothing, and nothing exploded. Gradually, over time, the explosion cooled into little bitty bits that just acted the way they acted because they do. These bits combined into more and more complicated stuff, and the stuff interacted according to the physical laws that just happened to be fine-tuned so the stuff could turn into life. At this point, the all-explaining theory of everything called evolution kicked in, leading in short order to bacteria, jellyfish, trilobites, bony fish, amphibians, dinosaurs, mammals, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, and all kinds of dumb civilizations enslaved to the God meme that accidentally evolved into our brains. And you, Homo rationalisticus, who has kicked down the ladder of prehistory and taken our place as a truly free being. That's not my quote, that's somebody else's. They believe that nothing just exploded and became life today. Yes?
If it exploded, wouldn't that just cause chaos?
When something blows up, what happens? If your parents walked into your bedroom, as I do, have your parents ever said, it looks like a bomb went off in here? What do they mean? It's a mess. It's chaos. It's confusion. It's disorder, right? Evolution, for the theory of evolution to be true, random chance and explosions don't produce order and fine-tuning. Yeah. I don't think they believe it was a star, a piece of matter. I don't think they know what it was. They believe it was always there. Evolutionists make fun of us who believe in God because we say God's always been. He's always been. And they're like, well, that's a cop-out. Well, okay, evolution, matter has always been. Energy always has been. Both creation and evolutionists believe there's always been something because nothing can't produce things, all right? Well, let's talk about the lack of evidence with creation and evolution. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, as I mentioned a second ago, this is going to be more technical. Might be the most boring class, but just hang with me as best we can. Faith in God exists because of the evidence, not in spite of the evidence. Faith in God is reasonable, it is rational, and it is logical. I don't believe evolution is. What is evolution? What is the general theory of evolution in your own words? You don't have to go back to the Big Bang. What is it? Okay. One creature turns into another creature, which turns into another creature, which turns into another creature. Yeah?
They just got smarter and smarter, like they didn't know anything. They're dumb.
Yeah. Intelligence had to evolve, right? So evolution is a change in the characteristics of biological populations over generations. One organism turns into another organism. Monkeys became man. Bacteria became fish, which became lizards, which became monkeys, which became man. That's essentially what evolution believes. The geological column does not support the theory of evolution. You're going to learn in school, if you haven't already, maybe they don't teach it anymore, but the Cambrian explosion. Have y'all heard of that? The Cambrian explosion is basically this thing. What is a geologic column? Anybody know? Let me back up there. What is it?
It's like fossils from over time. Like you have earliest fossils at the bottom.
Yeah.
At the top, you've got like
Yeah. So it's like if you took a pie and you cut out a piece of pie and you turned it sideways and you looked at it. In this picture, the very top is the top layer of grass and dirt. And as you dig down, you get deeper and deeper and deeper. So if evolution is true and things evolved over millions of years, you should be able to start way down here with the simplest, and it gets more complex and more complex and more complex. And you should be able to find fossils that are like half lizard, half bird, that are half bacteria, half fish, half lizard, half monkey, half man. If evolution is true, you should find all of that within this geological column. The deeper you go, the more basic you go, right? But when we look at the fossil record, that is not what we find at all. Instead, we find the Cambrian explosion where everything just appears. We find many of them already in an advanced state of evolution. The very first time they appear, it is as though, it is as though they were just planted there without any evolutionary history. In other words, what the scientists are saying, and this is Richard Dawkins, he's not a creationist, he's an evolutionist. He says if you dig down into the dirt and you look at the fossil record, you don't find evolution, you just find all the plants and animals already there in place as we see them today. And that's a problem. One could say that the Cambrian explosion stands Darwin's tree of life on its head. If any analogy were appropriate, it would be a lawn rather than a tree. By the way, adults, Icons of Evolution, if you are my age or older, is an excellent book because some of the things that you were taught in school were not only deceptive, but straight up lies. And we'll get to some of that in a minute. Icons of Evolution, it's a little bit of an older book, but it's a fantastic read for those of you who are my age. The Tiktaalik, that's what I call it. I've been told I pronounce all these things wrong, is one of the things that evolutionists for a long time said, hey, look at this creature. It's part fish, part lizard. It was in the process of evolving. They kept finding fossils of it. And they said, see, that's a missing link. Until somebody off the coast of India started catching them. The Archaeoraptor and Archaeoraptorix. Again, creatures that evolutionists are going to point to, and they're going to say, hey, look at this. So the Archaeoraptor in 1999, again, back in the Stone Age. It's hard to believe that these kids, when they think of the 90s, they think that was an eternity ago. It makes you feel old. In 1999, the National Geographic magazine published a story on the Archaeoraptor, claiming it was a missing link between dinosaurs and birds. A few months later, they had to publish a retraction because it was found to be a fraud. It was a bird with a dinosaur tail glued on. And the scientists, the evolutionary scientists, did not catch this. How many of you know who Lucy is? Have you studied Lucy in school, though? Okay, if you're my age, we studied Lucy in school. Have y'all heard of Lucy? Not I Love Lucy, great TV show. Lucy. Lucy, you will find, is these bones right here. It was a discovery that was made of this creature, this animal, and evolutionists went nuts over Lucy. Lucy is probably the most famous of all missing links. She was discovered in the 70s, dated to be 3.2 million years old. She was thought to have been 3 foot 6 inches tall, weighed about 50 pounds. They took all of these bones. Is that a lot of bones or a little? That's a little. That's missing a lot of pieces, isn't it? They took those bones and they created this. What do you think they don't know when they look at those bones to get this? What are they having to make up? What?
Well, all like the skin and face.
Okay, what about her skin? I don't even know that we can prove that it was a female. Maybe by the hip bone. Maybe. But what do they have to fill in the blanks? What blanks are they missing that they're making up here? Skin, what about it?
Like, it could be all hair.
How much hair did she have? They made her really, really hairy, right? Our women today try not to be hairy women. They made her hairy, super hairy. Did they know how much hair she had on her? No. What else is missing? Facial features. How big was her nose? I mean, if you look at this, that is all they had of her head. They're making up a lot, aren't they? What about her lips? If you notice when you look at this, what does that look like right here? Maybe a little bit like a chimpanzee, but does it also look like a human a little bit? Yeah. It almost looks like they tried their best to make these bones look half human and half chimp. They don't know what she looked like. They're making it up as they go. This is an artist's work, not science work. It's important to understand. Evolutionists approach evidence with bias. Do y'all know what bias is? What's bias? What? Having a preference, right? Do y'all have a bias when it comes to food? I do. There's things I like, there's things I don't like. If somebody puts asparagus on the table, I already don't like it. It might taste great, but I already don't like it because I don't like asparagus, right? So we have biases. We have these preconceived ideas. It's why there's racism, because people have a bias toward people that don't look like them. Evolutionists have a bias when it comes to their views. What was Lucy? At the end of the day, they could have made Lucy look like anything they wanted to. Most people don't realize that the case for a human like Lucy mainly depends on fossilized footprints. They were found in Tanzania. They're indistinguishable from human footprints that you would find on a beach. They found footprints near the fossils. That's why they decided that she would look half human, half monkey. Who's to say that there wasn't humans walking around chasing the monkey? They're making it up as they go. Lucy is just as easily a chimpanzee as she was anything else. Now, if this is in your school books, I'm going to get mad, okay? If you get taught this in school, I will get mad. This is, in adults, anybody know what this is? Kids, if you get it, I'll be shocked. I'll fall out. Anybody know what this is? Recapitulation of evolution. Educator in the room. Haeckel's embryos. I was taught this in school. I was taught Haeckel's embryos. When I said yesterday, when I got to be 22-ish, I started struggling in my faith. This was part of my problem. I'm like, if this is true, this sure does seem to look like evolution. So what they believe is that embryos, when you're in your mommy's belly, right, and animal embryos, they show the evolutionary process, that we all started out here and then we began changing down here. Haeckel's embryos. Haeckel promoted the idea that the stages of animals told their evolutionary history. Imagine a funnel. He portrayed a fish, a salamander, a tortoise, a chicken, a hog, a calf, a rabbit, and a human, all side by side looking at the embryos. The claim was that because the embryos looked the same at certain points in their development, that it showed evolution is real. But there's a problem. Haeckel avoided any animals that did not support what he already believed. Also, Haeckel got lazy and faked a bunch of his drawings. And his drawings show less of the early stages, more of the middle stages. Haeckel was a fraud. Okay? At least when it came to that. But guess what? I was taught that that was why evolution is true in school. I was also taught about Darwin's inventions. Who's Darwin? Anybody know? Who? I'm always coming to you last. I'm sorry. What?
Darwin was a man who supported the evolution and
Yeah.
kind of made it.
He's really considered like the godfather of evolution. Like, people consider him the inventor of evolution. Evolutionary ideas were around before him. Darwin's a fascinating person to study as you get older. But Charles Darwin, he goes to the Galapagos Islands and he's doing some experiments. And I believe you can look at his life and understand why he kind of turned into what he turned into. But he observed finches. He studied finches. And what Darwin discovered about these finches was that as climate changed, some seasons were really wet, some seasons were really dry. When climate changed, their food source changed. Okay? Now, what does a bird use its beak for? Yeah? Collecting stuff for their nest and eating food. You got to crack open shells of sunflower seeds, of pecans, of other things. And a bird with certain size beaks can eat different types of food easier than the others. So what Darwin observed was during certain types of climates, he noticed that there were more finches that had a certain sized, shaped beak around. And then when the climate changed a little bit, you go from really wet to maybe drier, he began to notice there were more finches with the other shaped beak. And he said, see, there's evolution, there's proof. I was taught this in school as evidence for evolution. Now here's the thing. What did Darwin actually observe happening? What changed in the finch? Their beaks, right? All he observed was a change in a beak. Did he observe a finch becoming an iguana? No. If you go to the Galapagos Islands today, guess what these finches are? Guess what kind of animal they are? They're still finches, right? All Darwin observed was survival of the fittest. All he observed was certain types of finches would survive and flourish better under certain climate conditions. The finches actually weren't evolving into other creatures. We do not disagree that changes in species can happen, but you don't change from a fish to a bird to a lizard. Okay, here's another one. This one made me angry when I saw this. Anybody know what this is? What's on the tree, kids? It's a moth, right? Moths get in your house, they eat your clothes, you get a hole in your clothes. We know what moths are. What is this? Anybody know? Anybody remember? Has it been that long? London. London, England, in the 1950s, Bernard Kettlewell made a discovery about moths. There were dark, he called them melanic moths, and lighter peppered moths. He released both of them in an area where pollution had destroyed the lichen growth. What is lichen? Anybody know? Moss on the trees. Birds ate many of the peppered moss on the trees because they didn't blend in anymore. More dark ones survived. Thus, he said, this showed evolution. Okay, that was a lot. What did he observe? He released dark moths. He released light-colored moths. Pollution had taken place. All of the white-colored moss on the trees had died, and the trees were all dark. And he observed the dark moss survived and the Light color ones didn't. What did he observe? Yeah. So birds are going to eat them, aren't they? That's all he observed. All he observed was survival of the fittest. There's been no change here, right? The monkey to man thing, as soon as they come back, we'll have to stop. The monkey to man pictures. You will see this in school. It's considered the evolution of mankind. Monkey turning into man, and they believe that that is there, that there's fossil evidence for that. The problem is many of the fossils proclaimed to be the intermediates are not actually intermediary fossils. Okay? Not intermediary, or they're not there. When they make a discovery, they take their ideas and they fill in all the blanks. I'm skipping things. Elijah mentioned this a minute ago, that explosions produce chaos. What happens when you leave things? That was weird. I didn't push a button. No, I didn't push a button. Second law of thermodynamics teaches us that matter and energy are moving toward a less unstable and more disorderly state called entropy. Evolution says we're getting more orderly. It doesn't work. What happens when you leave an abandoned car in a junkyard? It breaks down, right? What if you leave a pair of shoes outside? What happens? And it decays. What happens if you leave a toy in a sandbox outside? It decays. It breaks down, right? We don't move in a better direction, right? There are no good evidences for evolution that really prove that evolution has happened. Here's one quote. The good news is that the end is not near. The bad news is that when it does come, it's not going to be pretty. The stars, sun, and the earth will die, evaporating into radiation. There will be no light, only a vast soup of subatomic particles. I got taught that when I was at school. The sun's going to blow up and we're all going to die. They don't believe in God. That's the sad part. The real problem with evolution is that the evidence is missing. Darwin, when he wrote his book, Survival of the Fittest, and he drew the tree of life, he started it by saying, I think. Not I know, I think. This is what he thinks, and he begins to fill in the blanks. One would think that in the 125 years following Darwin, thousands of trained biologists studying the problem, using millions of dollars worth of complex lab equipment, that they would have worked it out by now, but the mechanism which originates new species is still the central mystery. They don't know how it happened. How can a fish become a lizard? They still don't know. They still don't know. I'm waiting on Karen to come out. Or skip peptides, that gets technical. Antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Have any of y'all ever had to take antibiotics? What does the doctor say when you take antibiotics? Take how many of them? A few or all of them? You take all of them. You take antibiotics till they're gone. If you don't, your body will build up, the bacteria in your body will build up a resistance to antibiotics, and then antibiotics won't work anymore. That's why stuff in the hospital like staph infection is really bad. Evolutionists point to this and say, see, there's the proof for evolution. Bacteria becoming antibiotic resistant. They change, they morph. But you know what happens when a bacteria becomes antibiotic resistant? It's harder for us to kill. Bacteria is a worse form of bacteria. It's not becoming better. It's not becoming something different. It's still bacteria, and it's bad about being bacteria. It's a bad bacteria. It's just harder for us to kill. You mentioned DNA. How does evolution get the DNA? Where does the information come from? You are who you are because of DNA. You don't have the DNA of a duck, or you would have waddled in here versus walking in here, right? And you would have looked funny, right? We don't have the DNA of a mouse, right? There's similarities there, but you have unique DNA that makes us us. How did the bacteria get the DNA to become a duck? Where did the information come from? It's not there. The evidence is missing. Okay. I don't know when they're coming out, but I'm definitely past time. Oh, I'm only 5 minutes past. She's good. Any questions?
That's something I've thought about for years is Genesis 1:30.
Okay?
Every beast of the earth and to every bird of the heavens and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has breath of life, I have given every green plant for food.
Mm-hmm.
So dogs and cats ate grass in the beginning.
Yeah, so I actually believe that in the beginning, before the fall of man, that no living creature as far as an animal died, as far as eating each other. I believe the animals ate plants, everything would have been more herbivore. Humans would have probably been vegetarians too, that it was after the fall that death would have entered. A little bit of guesswork there, though. A little bit of guesswork in that. That's what I think happened. Any other questions? So when evolutionists tell you that evolution is real and that there's evidence for it, the point behind all of this is there's nothing for them to really lock onto and say, here's the evidence. It's missing, right? It's missing. It's almost as if the earth appeared fully evolved, fully created, with everything we need for life and for life to be what it is, right? Any changes that happen are changes within the kinds, right? Any of y'all have a Labradoodle? Anybody got a Labradoodle? Have y'all see Labradoodles? You know what they are? Have you ever heard of a Chiweenie? It's a Chihuahua and a weenie dog mixed. Like people pay big money because a Chihuahua and a weenie dog produced a Chiweenie. They pay big money for that. Animals do change, right? The original canine would have been probably what? A wolf. The wolf is the most OG canine you can have. And from a wolf, you can produce a poodle. And a poodle is as bad at being a dog as you can possibly get. That's not me saying it, that's science saying it. A poodle is as bad as a dog as you can get, as far from a wolf as you get, right? I think a Chihuahua is because it's basically a cat. But you get the point, right? There's changes. But a wolf doesn't become a cat. A wolf doesn't become a cow. It doesn't have the DNA to do it. Any other questions?
I found out from people that know poodles used to all be big.
Okay.
They're huge.
Standard poodles, yeah?
And then they bred them down to where they were little.
Yeah. All of your cattle, bisons, they're all related. They all went back to two. Noah took 2 of every unclean. How many of every clean? Pairs. 14. Depending on your version. I use ESV, so that's where I come out there. Yeah.
Since they're like across cultures, there's been dinosaurs. Does that mean that Noah also took dinosaurs on the
Yeah. Our last session, I plan on talking about that a little bit. We'll see how much time we have. But yeah, I believe Noah would have brought dinosaurs onto the ark. Probably not the fish, the water-dwelling ones, but he would have brought dinosaurs on. How do you get a dinosaur on an ark? Very carefully, right? There's big dinosaurs, there's little. And it'd be more efficient to take a smaller dinosaur on the ark versus a full-grown one because it can live longer and have longer to have babies and repopulate the population. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we went to, if y'all ever get a chance to go to there's 2 things in Kentucky. There's the Creation Museum, and then there's also the Ark Encounter. And the Creation Museum's pretty cool. It's got a lot of Calvinism in it, a lot of Calvinistic teaching kind of plastered throughout it, but the evidence that is there is really cool. And the Ark Encounter just helps make it real. Hey, Josh, do you mind letting Karen know we're done?
I can let Karen know you're done.
Yeah. I don't know like when we need to switch, but yeah. Oh, our next session still has a few minutes. Yeah.
So, how would animals that live in the water, how would they have survived?
That's a great question. One that I don't have a great answer for, except I believe God protected them and made it happen. If you mix salt water and fresh water, what do you get? What's it called? Begins with a B. Brine. Brackish and briny water is salt and fresh together. That's probably what happened, and God just made them survive. Yeah.
Wouldn't babies like come out as like bacteria?
No, because you're already what you are. So, but what they believe is that you're in the process of evolving. So over time, they would believe, like over hundreds of thousands, millions of years, as we keep having babies, that our babies are in the process of changing into something else. I had a teacher in college, a professor, that said that what's happening is our heads are getting huge and our bodies are getting little. He didn't take my body into account, but whatever. Heads are getting big and our bodies are getting little, and eventually we'll all be all head with little bitty bodies. And I'm like, that's kind of a weird idea. But he was a little crazy too. That's what he believed. He was an evolutionist.
I mean, if evolution was real, like why are like monkeys extincts trying to people? Like,
Yeah. Why aren't there missing links
yeah.
still alive today? Yeah. It would make sense that there would be some. Not far from being back on schedule.
Cool. I'll do another song just to.
Yeah, you're good. Let me kill my mic. If you want to come and you're in 7th grade, you can go too. Go. 4th through 6th grade, follow her. You, ma'am, are stuck. You're 6, not 6th. You're
I wish Malachi was here.
1st grade. I do too. Maybe he'll show up. I think he's still in Hoover. Okay, it is. We're going to get rocking and rolling here. A few years ago, a movie came out called Meet the Croods. Have y'all ever seen Meet the Croods? I love any cartoon movie that has dinosaurs or cave people or whatever. I love them. So Meet the Croods. Who? Okay. Okay. So Meet the Croods was a cartoon movie. I can't remember who made it, but a cartoon movie about a cave family, a caveman and his wife and his daughter and a really crazy mother-in-law that he and she did not get along with very well. Kind of had some funny parts in it, but it's called Meet the Croods. Now, kids, what do these cave people look like to you? What do you think when you see them? What are they like?
Indians.
Kind of like Indians, yeah.
That guy.
Looks kind of crazy, doesn't he? Right? They're real hairy, right? They don't look like their hair is done up right. They're wearing like animal skin clothes, and they don't have cell phones. They don't have iPads. They don't watch TV. And in the movie, they learned about fire. They'd never seen fire before. Yeah. Looked like they hadn't had a bath in a long time. They lived in a cave. They grunted, right? Evolutionists want you to believe that the very first people were like that they lived in caves, that they weren't able to talk and communicate, that they didn't understand how to live, right? And I don't believe that that's what the Bible teaches, and I don't believe that that is what the story, the evidence shows. So, who were the first man and who were the first woman? Adam and Eve. You think that's what Adam and Eve look like? Well, definitely not Eve, but is that what Adam looked like?
No.
I don't think so, right? So y'all tell me, what do we read in Genesis 1? What do we read Adam and Eve were like? What? What do we read Adam and Eve doing? What did Adam and Eve do? They were picking fruit off a tree and eating it, right? And one of them got them in a lot of trouble, didn't it? Right? Were they able to talk? Yes. Yeah, they had language. They could speak to one another. They could talk to one another. What about other people who lived long ago? Who were some other characters that lived early in the book of Genesis? Anybody remember anybody else? Come on up here. Satan? Yeah. Noah? What did Noah do?
He built an ark before the flood came.
Yeah. What did he build the ark out of? Built it out of wood. Gopher wood, right? Have y'all ever built anything? It's hard work to build something, isn't it? Right? Noah knew how to build an ark. He could build a huge, massive boat. Was Noah dumb? No, he was smart. Were Adam and Eve dumb? No, they were smart. They were intelligent. They understood things. They knew right and they knew wrong. And they knew when they did wrong, right? So when we go back to our Bibles, I'm going to read some Bible verses. Kids, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm going to apologize. The lesson will largely be over your head a little bit. But there will be things I hope we can grab onto, and I'll talk to you just as much as I can. So I want to begin by looking at the very first couple, Adam and Eve. What were Adam and Eve really like? Okay? In Genesis chapter 1, I'm going to read a couple of verses. Genesis 1, verse 26. God said, let us make man in what? Anybody remember what it says? Our image. Genesis 1:26. God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let them have dominion. Do y'all know what dominion means? Your parents have dominion over you. What does that mean? Teachers have dominion over you. A police officer has dominion over you to some extent. They get to tell you what to do. So God told Adam and Eve, you're in charge. You're in charge of all of these animals and all of these plants, right? Gave them dominion over the earth, the beasts of the earth and the birds and everything else. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over every creeping thing. So when God made Adam and Eve, God said, you're in charge. You're the boss, right? Who's got a pet? Who's got a pet? What kind of pet you got? You got 2 dogs. I am not a cat person, but I get it. I had a cat once. I had a midlife crisis early on and got a cat. Got a dog. Cats are kind of a bad example because cats kind of are a little bit moody. They don't do what they tell you. But does your dog do what you tell him to do? Yeah? What, did anybody's dog do tricks? What? You taught him to fetch. Our dog is a little bit of a problem, okay? But if I tell my dog, go to bed, you know what my dog does? He goes to his kennel and he goes to bed. Now, he may bark and be crazy, be mad about it, but he does. If you tell my dog to sit, he sits. If you tell him to shake, he shakes, right? I have dominion over my dog. My dog does what I tell him to do. God said, Adam and Eve, you've got that. I'm going to read a couple more verses. Verse 16. It says, the Lord commanded the man, saying, you may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it you shall surely die. Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I'll make a helper fit for him. Or Genesis 2:18. He said, now out of the ground the Lord has formed every beast of the field, every bird of the heaven, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. Whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all the livestock, the birds of the heavens, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not a helper found fit for him. Okay, that's 2:16 through 20. So, God said, Adam, I'm going to put you in this garden. I'm going to have you work it. I'm going to have you keep it. And he said, I don't want you to eat of that tree over there. And what did Adam do? He ate it, and Eve ate it, and it was wrong, didn't they? Have your parents ever told you to do something and you didn't do what they said? If I say, Emmy, I want you to sit down and don't put your feet in the seat, and you put your feet in the seat, do you know it's wrong? Right? And do you ever feel bad when you do something wrong? No? Nobody ever feels bad? Emmy, if I get on to you, what happens? If I get upset with you and I get on to you, what happens? You get upset, don't you? Sometimes we even cry, right? So when we do wrong, when we do something wrong, we know it. Adam and Eve knew what was wrong. Now, that tells us a few things about Adam and Eve, and I'm going to point. I'm trying to use a Kindle. I'm going to say this 1,000 times today. I've never used a Fire as my notes, and it is an adjustment. Okay. Let's look at what it tells us. I think I've got this slide up here. This is Adam and Eve. This is from, I believe, the Creation Museum up in Kentucky that I went to a long time ago. They were created in God's image and likeness. They were able to communicate. Adam and Eve talked to each other. They talked to Satan. They were able to talk with God. They possessed social skills. They were able to interact with one another, be friends with one another, right? They were capable of work, and they were responsible to do what God said. If God said, go clean your room, a.k.a. the garden, they went and they cleaned their room, the garden, so they knew that they could work. They were intelligent. They were creative. They were able to reason. They became morally aware. They knew right and they knew wrong. Ask any scientist, whether they are in evolution or not, and he will tell you that communication by language is one of the main factors separating humans from animals. Can anybody speak a different language? Everybody here just speak English? Know any other words? No? Cuatro, cinco. What is that? What language is that? Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. It's Spanish, right? She can speak 2 languages. That's awesome, right? That distinguishes us from animals. Adam and Eve, the very first people, had the ability to communicate by language. They were fully developed. They were fully developed and they were able to function. Cain and Abel, in Genesis 4, 2 through 7, they were able to garden and keep the animals. They had morals. They knew right and wrong. What did Cain do to Abel? Anybody remember? Don't remember the story of Cain and Abel? Okay, I don't know what age we teach this. Cain and Abel brought a sacrifice to God. And Cain brought from the garden, he liked to garden, and Abel kept animals, so Abel brought an animal. And God was upset with what Cain brought, and God was happy with what Abel did. If your parents are ever happy with your brother or sister and they're upset with you because your brother and sister did what was right, but you did what was wrong, you know how Cain felt. It made him mad, right? Cain got mad, and what did he do to Abel? He killed him and buried his body. That gets pretty morbid, right? But he killed him and he buried his body. And Cain knew it was wrong. When you do something and you know it's wrong, do you ever hide it? You don't ever hide it? Do people sometimes lie when they do something wrong to try to get away with it? Yeah? Yeah? Right? If you break something, some kids will accidentally break something that belonged to mom and dad, and they'll hide it under their bed so mom and dad don't find it because they know it's wrong. Right? Right? Maybe a kid's potty training and they mess up their pants. They hide their pants. I know it's weird, it's twisted to bring up, but it happens. Why? Because you feel bad, right? That's Cain and Abel. Cain was able and Abel was able to understand right and wrong, good and evil, and they understood it. After this, adults, I'm not going to read these verses, but you can look at them in your Bible in Genesis 4, 17 through 22. You've got early man. Early man. Some of the things they were doing, Cain built an entire city and named it after his son Enoch. It was the city of Enoch. Emmy, how would you like to have the city of Emmy? This is Emmy City, and Emmy is the mayor of her own town. She can do what she wants. You wouldn't like that? Yeah, you would. Jabal created the work of being a migrant farmer with livestock. Jubal was a musician. He led people in playing the harp and the lyre. Tubal-Cain was a metallurgist. He was able to forge instruments of iron and bronze. I have been watching every YouTube video I can watch about how to make a knife. I want to start making knives. It is taking me forever just to learn what it takes to make a knife. And yet early man was not a caveman. They were able to make knives. What about Noah when Noah built the ark? If your parents are building something, what do they use? Yeah. I have a drill press in my garage. It's like super, super old and cool. But it's a super powerful drill press that puts holes in things for me, right? I've got power saws that cut wood, right? I got all of these tools that I use, and when I need to build something or work on something, it makes it easy. Noah built the ark without electricity. He didn't have a nail gun. He didn't have a drill. He didn't have a saw that would work like that. And yet he understood how to build the ark. He made and followed plans. Do what? Yeah, but he was smart enough to do it. That's my point. After the flood, okay, Emmy, some of y'all may know this. Before the flood, what comes next? Scattering of the people. Why were I know the patriarchs, but we're stopping scattering people. Why were the people scattered? Anybody know? They were building what? They were building a tower, Emmy, Tower of Babel. Okay, it's on me, not you. Tower of Babel. So what they did, this was after the flood. Again, early man, they built their Tower of Babel. They got together and said, we're going to build a tower, and we want it to reach all the way up into the heavens, a.k.a. this is going to be a skyscraper. You ever go to downtown Birmingham and see the big buildings?
Yeah, I used to live in Birmingham.
There you go. Big, tall buildings, right? Or you go to Atlanta, and there's these massively tall buildings that go way up into the skies, right? If you go to New York or Chicago, I went to Chicago, went way up on this building, and the building actually would move in the wind. It was kind of scary, right? That's what they were trying to build. And they were doing it, right? What that tells us is that they were able to accomplish something really great. They were not cave people. People live in caves. They weren't cavemen. It wasn't this man that got his wife by the hair of her head and drug her around and go, with a club, smacking animals on the head and not being able to talk or do anything. No, that's not what it was. Not what it was at all. Evolutionists paint a different picture. You've got the ape to man chart. I showed this in our last class. This is the early man supposedly was a monkey. Do y'all ever act like monkeys? I tell my kids they're a bunch of monkeys sometimes. They act like it. They run around, they make messes, they yell and they scream and they hit each other. That's what monkeys do at the zoo, right? So quit acting like a bunch of monkeys. Evolutionists believe that your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was a monkey. And now you're you. That doesn't make sense, does it? Trying to adjust for the age that's sitting in here, so I apologize for the pause. This is called the tree of life. So each of you have a family tree, whether it's written down or not. We've never written ours down. I need to get a copy of it just to have it. But it starts with you at the top of the tree, and then it's your parents, and then it's your grandparents. So Emmy, you're at the top, and then it's me and your mommy, and then underneath us is Hoppy. And then you got Hoppy's parents, Almus and Evelyn. Almus is a weird name, but Almus and Evelyn. And then what was Almus's parents' name? Your grandparents? Brenna, help me out. Can't ask questions.
John Blake.
Yeah, I'm too. That's your family tree. When we say family tree. So evolutionists teach that your family tree has a bunch of monkeys and chimpanzees and baboons and other kinds of primates in it. That's what you're descended from.
Dupree Beer.
Dupree, there we go. There's a Dupree in your family tree, but there's not a monkey, okay? We act like it sometimes, but we're not. Okay. Evolutionists, this is from the Smithsonian Museum. It says people originated from ape-like ancestors. All people originated from ape-like ancestors and evolved over a period of approximately 6 million years. Evidence doesn't support that. The fossils of early humans who lived between 6 and 2 million years ago come entirely from Africa. So they believe all of mankind started in Africa. Does anybody know where mankind started according to the Bible? You ever hear of like Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, the Middle East, Israel? That's where we came from. They think we came from Africa because obviously there's a lot of monkeys in Africa. Some of the evidence is given by evolutionists. Okay, here's where things get a little crazy. Okay, feel your body, you got a bunch of bones, right? Your arm bone, your head, right? Your ears is cartilage, but you got vertebrae back here. We got tons of bones in our body. I don't know how many there are, so we have to look it up. But scientists, evolutionary scientists found this and this. How many bones is that? 2. They took 2 bones and they decided that it looked like this dude over here. Whoops, sorry, wrong way. I hate when I do that. This dude right here. How do you take those 2 bones and create that picture? Did they know what his skin looked like? No. Did they know what his hair color was from those 2 bones? No. They're using their imagination. As it turns out, the leg bone and the teeth were human. The skull cap eventually was shown to be from a giant gibbon monkey. So this is a monkey bone and a human bone, and they created the Java man. Neanderthal. Now, I've been told by people before, you're acting like a bunch of Neanderthals. What that means is you're acting like a bunch of cave people. Neanderthal remains were found in 1908, so we're talking 120 years ago. They were thought to be dumb, ape-like. They were stooped over, and these are supposedly part humans who drug their knuckles on the ground. I'm too old to do it, but you know, you're walking like this. Okay, that's what they thought this creature was. And what they later on discovered was that his appearance of being stooped over was because of arthritis and rickets and not because of evolution. They're now seen to be skilled hunters, believers in an afterlife, and skilled surgeons. One skeleton's a withered right arm had been amputated above the elbow. The Neanderthals were no Neanderthals. Then you had the Piltdown man. Here's another piece. The Piltdown man. In 1912, Charles Dawson was a doctor and a paleontologist. He discovered a mandible and a portion of a skull, so your jaw and your skull, in Piltdown, England. And they announced it as a missing link. In 1953, he was exposed as a forgery. The skull was human, and the teeth on the ape's jaw had been intentionally filed down and treated to make them look old. But museums had put this out there and said, this is the missing link. This is the piece of evolution that's here. No, it's not. Then there's the Nebraska man. Guys, look at the screen. They thought this was your ancestor. It's crazy. In 1922, they found a tooth, and they grew an entire evolutionary link from it between man and monkey until they found another tooth which was protruding out of the jawbone of a wild pig. The Nebraska man was literally a pig, and they thought that that's where we came from. In 82, you had the Orse man. Archaeologists were digging near Orse, Spain. They uncovered an unusual bone fragment. Not much, by the way, again. And they announced that it belonged to a human child. It caused an uproar. The discovery placed humans in Europe earlier than they thought. The Orse man, as the find came to be known, was said to represent the oldest human fossil ever discovered in Europe. Later on, they identified the skull cap as a 6-month-old donkey. It ain't human, it's a donkey. It's an animal, not a human. Lucy, we talked about this in the last class, 1974 discovery in Ethiopia. Consisted of skull fragments, lower jaw, ribs, arm bone, part of its hip, thigh bone, shin bones. Said to be an adult and was dated at being 3.5 million years old. If you look at Lucy, what does that look like up there? What does that look like? It looks like a monkey, doesn't it? And they took just a few bones and they put them together and they created this whole story about this animal. What they later went on to discover is that while Lucy is interesting, there is nothing to indicate that Lucy is anything more than an orangutan or a chimpanzee. They took those bones and they created this picture. Now, I asked the last class, look at this and look at that. What is missing here? What do you not have? If you want to create this picture, what do you not have in these bones? You what? There's a lot missing, isn't there? I mean, they're only got a few pieces of her head. Don't really know how big her head really was. What about her skin? What color is her skin? We don't know. They had to make it up. Was she hairy or did she have no hair on her? Well, we don't know because the bones don't tell you how much hair she had. Was her nose big or little? Well, you don't know because there's no nose in the bones, right? This is what Lucy probably looked like. They created a whole story, and they still teach kids today that Lucy is our ancestor. There was another discovery that was made in 2015, Homo naledi. Homo naledi was discovered deep in a cave in South Africa, and everybody went crazy over Homo naledi because they decided that this is what Homo naledi looked like. Again, they found bones. What do they not know from the bones? What it looks like, right? You can kind of get a shape, but some of these features and the amount of hair and other things, you don't know. You got to make them up. They found them in a cave in South Africa. Sorry, I'm having trouble. Here's a picture of the cave. It'd be kind of cool to go in there. I like caves, right? Here they are digging up the bones and doing their discovery. And it was a really small opening, almost like a pipe in the ground made out of rock. And they had to bring really skinny people, so I could not have gone down there. Y'all could, not me, to get down in there. And they're going to ask you questions like, how did these bones get in here? How did these animals or people get down in here? And researchers believe they were dropped after they died. So these were creatures that died and their bodies were dropped down this chute into the cave in the ground. It was a burial cave, place uniquely human. So that began to draw speculation that these were like prehistoric people, because do animals bury other dead animals? Not really. A dog might bury a bone, but not because they're sad. But when somebody dies, we have a funeral, we bury them in the ground because we're people and we value life and we value the body. That's what we do, right? And so they're looking at this, they're saying these creatures had to be human-like creatures because they're burying their dead. Animals don't do that. Well, Homo naledi, after all of the discoveries that they could do, faded away from the headlines because it proved to be no missing link at all, just another creature that they found, another case of here's some bones that were deep down in here. We don't know why they're there, how they got there. But they came back and they basically said this isn't the missing link. I'm being gracious with the kids. I'm trying to figure out what to include and what to leave out. It is 10:55. We've got 10 minutes. Okay. Trying to skip through some of this stuff. This is Jebel Irhoud, Morocco. They found remains that supposedly in 2017 dated back 300,000 years. That's 100,000 years older than all the others. They found a partial skull. The lower jaw belonged to 5 different individuals, including 3 young adults, an adolescent, a child estimated to be 8 years old. Stone tools, animal bones, and evidence of fire were also found in the same layer at the site. Our analysis convinced us that this material represents the very root of our species, the oldest Homo sapiens ever found in Africa or elsewhere. If we could see these Homo sapiens from 300,000 years ago walking around today, they would look very similar to us. If they were wearing a hat, Hublin said, their faces would be short, flat, retracted compared to Neanderthals, and even some of the dental aspects are similar to ours. That elongated skull would give them away as being not quite like us. Their brains, specifically the cerebellum, wasn't shaped like ours, but based on the brain case, they discovered these Homo sapiens did have a larger cerebellum than the Neanderthal. So I read that quote. Basically what they're saying is we found these bones. They look kind of human-like, but their jaw's a little bit elongated. Have y'all ever met a person who had a bigger face than other people? Or maybe there's somebody, their neck is a little bit longer than other people, or somebody's got a really big forehead. We see all that today, don't we? It just changes within the human species. It's not necessarily what they think it is. Let's see. And that's their discovery there. In Mount Carmel, a biblical place, a single jawbone's been discovered and dated 175,000 years old, which isn't true, but whatever. Evolutionists held that humans did not migrate out of Africa until 50 to 60,000 years ago, so it supposedly predates that greatly. Sophisticated stone tools were also discovered nearby. The teeth and jawbones are similar to modern humans. The sharp, pointed stone tools are said to show much greater sophistication and planning than originally expected for such a creature. Evolutionists are saying we all came from Africa, that there were monkeys that became men, we migrated out of Africa, and yet they found this at Mount Carmel. What's important at Mount Carmel? Anybody remember who was there? Elijah and the prophets of Baal in the Bible. We read about people living at Mount Carmel, doing things at Mount Carmel. They had homes, they had houses, they built things, they built cities. I'm not surprised they found sophisticated beings that lived there a long time ago. Skipping some stuff. This is an ancient carving from some of these, or ancient drawing, cave drawing that was thought to be prehistoric, but that doesn't necessarily look prehistoric to me. That looks like somebody that kind of knew what they were drawing pictures of. It looks like intelligent. The ability to create art is intelligence. It's not prehistoric. I'm skipping things. We don't find a lot of fossilized human beings. We don't know why. A lot of it is we dispose of human beings differently than animals do. There's not a lot of fossilized monkeys either. Nothing about the fossil record shows them evolving from anything or to anything. If they find something, it's either primate, monkeys, baboon, chimpanzee, or it's human. There's nothing that's been found that shows anything in the process of evolving. We see incredible intelligence in the Mayans, incredible intelligence in the Egyptians. If you go to Egypt, what's in Egypt? That's what I've been trying to get to. What's in Egypt? What? What is that? What? It's a pyramid. You go to Egypt and they got these pyramids that are super, super, super tall. Now, I've got some questions about pyramids and the flood and the timing of them. I've got some questions there. But you got these pyramids that were built long time ago, and they're still here today, right? Which tells us these people were really smart. They were able to build things that would last. You build things today, they don't last, right? But these ancient Egyptians built pyramids, and they lasted all this time. Yes, ma'am.
At our Pell City Church, Miss Pam Vaughn, she showed us pictures of her going there.
She went to, I didn't know she went to Egypt. Okay, so there's people that go to Egypt and they walk up these things, right? The people that built that, were they dumb or were they smart? They were smart, right? I couldn't build that. Could you build that? No. They're really smart people. And so, no, it's not. Early man is not like that. Okay, here's the Mayan calendar. So, what was it, 2012? Everybody thought the world was going to end because the ancient Mayans, like thousands of years ago, made a calendar based on the moon. Were they dumb or smart if they could make a calendar based on the moon? They're smart, right? And it went thousands of years or hundreds of years. I can't remember the exact date. And they got the calendar right. And all of a sudden, the calendar ended in 2012. 13 years ago, and a lot of people thought the world was going to end in 2012 because the Mayan calendar stopped at 2012. Well, guess what? If you have a calendar hanging up on your refrigerator, do you know when it stops? December 31st of 2025. The world's going to end, right? No, that's just when the calendar stopped. That's just when their calendar stopped. 2013 came, and now it's 2025. 12, 13 years later, we're still here, but how smart the Mayans were that they were able to create that. I'm just waiting on Karen. We'll stop when she comes out. So as the Bible, as we make discoveries, guys, as we make discoveries more and more, the Bible confirms, or the Bible is confirmed. We dig things up. We find fossils, we find human remains. It doesn't surprise those who believe in God because it always backs up what the Bible teaches. It doesn't contradict it. Okay, if y'all want to get up and move around, you can.
Aaron, you know what I was thinking about when you was talking there about the evolutionists? They're like a lot of religious people do with the Bible.
Right.
They already have their mind made up on things, and
Right.
they read into it what they want it to prove rather than reading or letting the evidence speak for itself.
Correct. So, and that's called, hey, adults, in just a few minutes, we're going to go back and we're going to play with the fossils. And if you want to stick your hands in mealworms and maggots and whatever else, you'll have that opportunity too. So in just a few minutes, we'll go back. Me and Karen will talk to you about the rocks. Some of the rocks are rocks that I have found personally. Some of the rocks were given to me by a guy at Trustwell named James South. He died from COVID. During COVID, he died. but he had a bunch of fossils that he found in the Coleman County area. He was worked at NASA, and just really cool stuff. So we'll be looking at those in just a minute. But yes, we all bring preconceived ideas in. When I look at something, when I look at the mountains, I see God, I see the flood. Evolutionist looks at it and he sees millions of years of the earth pushing up.
Yeah.
Which I'll give a brief summary about creation evolution in a minute. That is right, Karen, isn't it? Okay. I encourage y'all to go back in just a second and look at the rocks. It's not every day you get to pick up a dinosaur bone. I've got a dinosaur bone back there, so it's I feel like it's worth doing. There's also dinosaur poo-poo back there that you can play with. It's fossilized poop. Yep. You've already been back there, you know. All right, guys, as we get back going, this is our wrap up. I'm going to talk about the flood a little bit, but before I do, what was your favorite thing in the back? What?
The bone.
The bones? Awesome. What was your favorite?
The snails and the worms.
The snails and the worms? That's cool. What's your favorite?
Alligator skull, but it was kind of disappointing that we couldn't pick it up.
Yeah, that is a disappointment, but they are very fragile and they can break. And sea turtle skull especially, you can't just go grab a sea turtle skull and keep it. What's your favorite? Everything. Yours?
I want to raise my hand.
Oh, well, what was your favorite?
Probably the snails.
Snails. What was your favorite? Snails. Snails. That's interesting. Nobody said the dinosaur poop. I mean, come on, fossilized poop, and you got to hold it? Or the vertebrae? Yeah, those are my favorite. So we've actually got a whole lot more rocks, a whole lot more fossils that we didn't even bring out. We could fill the auditorium with rocks. But those are a good sample of them.
My favorite was the shark.
The shark teeth. Can you imagine how huge that shark had to be to have a tooth that big? I mean, it's crazy. I follow a few guys on Facebook, and there's one that goes out scuba diving off the coast of South Carolina, and he finds the megalodon teeth all the time, and he gets them that are like 6 or 8 inches, and they're huge. And you're like, that fish, if you had that thing swim up on you, it'd be scary. Okay, we're going to talk about one last thing, and we're going to be done in less than 30 minutes, hopefully. And I'm going to get you out of here and let you get about your day, okay? But I want to talk about the flood a little bit. Who built the ark? Noah. And how long did it rain? 40 days, right? And the whole earth was covered with water. Now, if a flood like that happened, where the entire world was covered with water, Noah was on the ark for how long? That's how long it rained. It was about a year, wasn't it, that he was on the ark? Somebody can correct me if that's wrong. Where's Josh? About a year he was on the ark. I think that's about right. He was on the ark about a year for the waters to come back down, right? If a flood like that happened, what would it do to the world? What?
Reshape it.
It would reshape things. We're going to mention that in a minute. The whole way the world looked changed when the flood happened. What else would happen?
It would cool down everything.
It would cool down everything, right? Y'all hear about the Ice Age? I believe the Ice Age happened right after the flood, okay? Maybe not the way evolutionists think, but pretty close.
Animals would die.
A lot of animals would die, and they would be buried in the mud, and they would turn into fossils, right? Perfect. Okay? So if the flood happened, we would be able to look at our world and we would be able to see some signs of the flood. I've said this a lot. I'm going to say it again. Faith in God exists because of the evidence, not in spite of it. Evolutionists would tell us that we believe in God because that's what we want to believe be true. That it's a fairy tale, that it's a made-up story, that there's really no evidence for God. That's what these lessons have been about. There is reason to believe in God, right? Faith in God is reasonable, it is rational, and it is logical. So let's talk about the flood. How many of y'all have been to go see the ark? Raise your hand. Okay? Parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. It is well worth the trip. It's in northern Kentucky. Alabama's, to me, one of the most beautiful states. Kentucky's beautiful as well, okay? The Ark encounter is an awesome experience. It helps the Bible story come to life. If you can take your kids there, highly recommend it. You will be blown away yourself. The kids will be greatly entertained. So, there are people that say that the flood cannot be real. Can y'all think of a reason why somebody might have a hard time believing that the flood happened? What?
They don't believe.
Well, they don't believe in God, so they don't want it to be true. Yeah?
A flood like that has never happened to us.
We've not experienced it. Yeah. God said it wouldn't happen again, right? So we would expect that it wouldn't happen again. Any other ideas? Why it'd be hard to believe in the ark? How do you get all them animals on the ark? Be kind of hard, wouldn't it? I can't hear. It had never rained, right? And certainly, even since then, we've not seen rain like that, right? Let's talk about some things that come up. How could the ark be big enough to carry all the species on the ark. Okay? There's a couple of problems with this. First of all, here's one of the critics. The ark was far too small to be able to carry the earth's millions of animal species. There would be about 1.5 cubic feet for each pair of the 2 million to 5 million species taken aboard. Okay? We talked a little bit earlier about Chihuahuas and Chiweenies, Labradoodles, and other animals that are like that, right? I don't know if I've got them in this presentation or not, right? Did Noah really need to take some of every species onto the ark? No, because a cow and a buffalo came from the same two ancestors, right? So you could have two animals that produce different species. Noah took kinds, and evolutionists don't like to talk about kinds. When we talk about the ark was actually really huge. Have y'all ever sat at a railroad track and watched a train go by? Okay, and if you start counting the cars, there might be 20 or 30 cars. Imagine 520 cars going by on a train. The ark was 1,396,000 cubic feet. It was huge. 35,000 animals would take up just 150 of the 520 boxcars. The ark was massive. The Bible never says the ark carried 2, 7, or 14 of each species. It uses the word kind. And in 1980, Ernest Meyer, an evolutionist, listed the total number of animals per species. He said 8,600 birds, 6,300 reptiles, 2,500 amphibians, a total of only 21,100 different species. Taking 2 of each unclean and 7 clean, and having the average size of an animal being a sheep, the animals would have only taken up 36% of the space on the ark. So, even going by species, you still only wind up with 36% of the space being full. So there's plenty of room on the ark. How can the window on the ark be adequate? Okay, I'm going to get a little gross here. If y'all hate me for this, I'm sorry. Kick me out now. Riding down the road on a trip. It's hot outside, the windows are up, and the AC is blowing full blast, and somebody goes, "Oh, somebody stinks. Who pooted?" Has that ever happened in your car before on a trip? Somebody ripped a big one in the car, and all of a sudden everybody's holding, why are they pointing at you? Everybody's holding their nose. Who did it? Who did it? Right? Can you imagine being on the ark with all of those animals? And they're pooping and they're peeing all the time. You imagine how bad that would stink? And really, if you didn't have any ventilation, you would die from the gas alone, okay? So people object, and I'm like, hey, the ark, it couldn't happen because the window's not big enough, okay? So when you look at the Bible in Genesis 6 and verse 16, I invite, especially the adults, if you want to follow along and look at Genesis 6 and 7, I'd encourage you to double check all this. But the evolutionist claims that the window is 18 inches, and an 18-inch window could never properly ventilate the ark, and that it would prove fatal. First of all, in Genesis chapter 6 and verse 16, that is not a window. The Hebrew word for window is different from that word. This word is a ventilation type system. All the translators know is that it is associated with light. It let light in. It could be a window. Most likely it is a ventilation system. And all the text tells us that it was about a cubit below the roof of the ark. We don't know how wide it actually was. Later on, when Noah opens a window, it is a different word. This opening was a ventilation system and not a window. So the ark had a ventilation system, okay? How could Noah have the skill or intelligence to build such a vessel? We've talked about this already. The evolutionists have had a huge impact on our thinking. When we think about early man, we think of a caveman, a guy that grunts, grabs his wife by the hair of her head and walks around with a big club in his hand, banging things, going, "Arr, arr, 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 arr." That's not what early man was like. We talked about it in one of our classes. Early man was intelligent and smart and understood how to make things and build things and do things. Noah had the ability to build the ark, but most of all, who helped Noah with the ark? Who told Noah how to build the ark? God did. So Noah wasn't on his own to figure all that out. How could Noah handle all that many animals, especially with all the dangers that were associated with them? Were there animals on the ark that were dangerous? What would be one?
Lion.
A lion, a cobra. Good. Another animal that might be put on the ark to be dangerous. Somebody asked earlier, what about a T-Rex? You going to take a T-Rex on the ark? What? A scorpion? I'm not totally sure whether scorpions had to be on the ark or not. Maybe. I still haven't figured that out. A zebra? Zebra's not a scary animal. Unless you talk about referees, I don't like them. Do what? A tiger? So how would Noah get these animals on the ark? Would they not kill Noah? Would they not eat Noah? If you went out and you messed with a wild tiger, what would it do to you? You die. It'd eat you. So how do you think that worked for Noah? In Genesis 6, 19 and 20, Noah did not have to go looking for the animals. The Bible tells us that God brought the animals that God wanted on the ark to Noah. What happens to animals when there's big storms that come? What do? They do it first. Some of them do. Animals go lay down. So animals often get lethargic during a storm. If you put Zeke on a boat, our dog, you know what Zeke would do? Other than jump off into the water, but he'd go lay down, right? Animals do that all the time. But if God brought the animals to Noah, and God tells Noah to build the ark and how to build the ark, and God wanted the earth to be replenished afterwards, would God not have taken care of these animals too? What about the massive amount of water? And adults, this is actually pretty cool. Okay? How could all of the water simply disappear? If water covered the tops of the mountains, where did all the water go after the flood? What's a big mountain? Anybody know what a big mountain is? Name a big mountain?
Everest.
Mount Everest. The water covered the top of Mount Everest. Where did all that water go? Okay? We'll talk about a couple of things briefly with it, okay? So if the whole earth was covered by water, where did all the water go? Scientists scanning the deep interior of the earth have found evidence of a vast water reservoir beneath eastern Asia that is at least the volume of the Arctic Ocean. Its discovery marks the first time such a large body of water was found deep in the earth's mantle. Guys, they have since, even after I put these notes together, they have found more bodies of water under the earth's surface. Scientists, even evolutionists, are telling us now there is more water under the surface of the earth than there is above the surface of the earth. That is a phenomenal thing when you think about it. Where did all the water go? It receded. Where did it go to? A lot of it would have went into the ground. God made it happen. We're going to read this verse. Yeah, go ahead.
If there was that much water down there, could things lift it?
It'd be underground. And some of it kind of takes different forms. Some of it's tied up inside of rocks. There's a lot of stuff there, but I would imagine they would not have the ability that wouldn't be survivable, I would imagine. But I'm speaking but from what I think, not what I know. I'm going to read a verse to y'all. We're going to read Psalm 104. And the first time I saw this, I was like, that is cool. Psalm 104. And in Psalm 104, the psalmist talks about the creation. O Lord, my God, you're very great. You're clothed with splendor and majesty. It talks about he lays the beams of his chambers on the waters. He makes the clouds his chariot. You know, God's in control of the earth, right? Verse 5, he set the earth on its foundations so that it should never be moved. Okay, we don't have to worry about the world going away. God's got that. Verse 6, you covered it with the deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. When did that happen? At your rebuke, they fled. The waters receded. At the sound of your thunder, they took to flight. The mountains rose. The valleys sank down to the place that you appointed for them. You set a boundary that they may not pass, so they may not again cover the earth. What is he talking about again? The flood and the oceans and the waters. So, that psalm describes something very important that happened when the flood happened. Mountains rose and valleys sunk down. Before the flood, the Mount Everest was not as tall as it is today. And before the flood, the canyons and the valleys were not as deep as they are today. When the flood happened, God changed it all. Pangea, he brought Pangea up. Have you ever sat down at school and you looked and all the continents fit together like a puzzle? And if you go from Africa to South America, it is almost as if the rock ledges end in Africa and they pick up in South America. Pangea is real. The flood would have driven them apart. All throughout ancient history, there's legends of a flood. And in 95% of the more than 200 flood legends, the flood was worldwide. And 88%, a family was favored. 70%, survival was by means of a boat. And on we go. In 9% of the legends, exactly 8 people were spared. These legends exist all over the world in ancient cultures, telling the story of the flood. And here's a few. And we're not going to read all these. The Aztecs. Only 2 people, the hero Coxcox and his wife, what a weird name for Noah, but whatever, survived the flood by floating in a boat that came to rest on a mountain. Where did Noah's ark come to rest? What was the name? The ark, it rested on Ararat. Ark, it rested on Ararat. Rested on Ararat. Don't you think they're glad of that? Y'all don't know that song. That makes me sad. Soon after it, giants built a great pyramid to try to reach the heavens. What does that sound like? Tower of Babel. By the way, adults, some people believe that's a Nephilim that did that, the offspring of angels and humans. It's a whole weird but interesting thing that might be true but might not. I don't know. It angered the gods who scattered them with fire. Tales of Tezpi. This is in Mexico. A man who escaped the flood in a boat filled with animals. He sent out a scavenger bird that never returned, then a dove that came back with an olive leaf, then a hummingbird that brought back a twig. This is supposedly before the Bible was taken to these people, and they're telling the story of the flood. Yeah.
Why did the bird bring back the twig?
Because it was showing Noah that some of the water had receded. Ancient Greek mythology, ancient Babylonian, the Gilgamesh epic is pretty fascinating. It's similar as well. I'm trying to get to another thing. Okay, this is an ancient Chinese language. There's been people that have become Christians in China from it. If y'all know who John McPherson is, he went to China. He used this to teach people in China about the Bible. So this is an ancient Chinese language that is no longer used today. But the Chinese people know these characters. It's almost like an art form. There's even a forbidden area where there's even more of this. But the word for garden in this ancient Chinese language is the combination of dust, breath, enclosure, person, and person. So 2 people, dust and breath. What does that sound like? Adam and Eve. God breathed life into them, and they were made. Adam was made from the what? Dust of the ground. Okay, so the word for desire or covet, I want something really bad, is 2 trees and a woman. Why would you choose those? Unless it's Eve eating the fruit of the knowledge of tree of good and evil. Righteousness is a lamb, me, a hand, and a blade. Why would that be the symbol for righteousness? What did a lamb, me, taking a blade in my hand have to do with righteousness? Well, this is before Jesus died on the cross. This is before Moses wrote the book of Genesis, probably. What did they sacrifice? A lamb. Yeah, to be righteous. The word large ship is the word or the picture of a person, 8, and a boat. Why do you use that to mean large ship? Unless they knew something. So how did all of those people who went to Asia know the story of the flood before Moses wrote the book of Genesis, supposedly? How would they know that? What was the first event that happened after the flood? First event after flood. We talked about it. Emmy, the Tower of?
Egypt.
No. Tower of Babel. So what happened in the Tower of Babel? They built this skyscraper, and what did God do in response to it? Confused their languages. So everybody started speaking different languages. You had one group that would speak, for instance, Chinese, one group would speak French, group would speak German or whatever. God would confuse their languages. And now me and you can't communicate with each other anymore, but I can communicate with Elijah and you can communicate with Emmy, so you and Emmy go off that way and me and Elijah go off that way. So what happened was, because of that, people then would migrate away from the Tower of Babel, but they would have Genesis 1 through 11 forever memorized. And they would tell their kids the stories of the Garden of Eden, of Cain and Abel, and the story of the flood. In Genesis 11, the scattering of the people, that's what happened. People who lived here got scattered, and some would have went to the Asian area, the Chinese area. They would have walked from the west after a great division, and their word for migrate is great division walking west. Why would that be that? Unless they came from the Tower of Babel, they migrated west, or migrated from the west over to Asia, and they took the stories with them. Pretty cool stuff. There are dinosaur graveyards all over the world. We've already mentioned this a little bit. We'll go over it super briefly, but Eastern Cape Province in South Africa, I hope I can remember my notes because my computer went dead. The Eastern Cape Province in South Africa is one dinosaur graveyard. Here's another one, another picture. Look how massive that bone is, and that's a dinosaur fossil that's been unearthed in the middle of a desert region. Here's more. I believe these were in the mountains. This is in Wyoming. You can go to Wyoming. You can visit a dinosaur graveyard where massive amounts of animals were all buried at once. Here's what it says. Colophysis lived during the late Triassic period, about 210 million years ago, at a time when northern New Mexico was an arid lowland environment. I mentioned that a moment ago. The deserts used to not be deserts. Periodic monsoonal rains interrupted the dry conditions, producing flash floods that swept across the land. One of these flash floods may have drowned an entire herd of these animals, causing the great concentration of bones that is found at the Ghost Ranch. So what they're saying is there was a flash flood that killed all these animals and buried them quickly over here in North Mexico. I'm not going to read all these quotes. I'm going to spare you them. But we mentioned this. There are dinosaur graveyards all over the world. And evolutionists say flash flood, flash flood, flash flood, flash flood. If there was flash flooding that happened all over the world, burying all of these creatures, maybe it wasn't a flash flood after all. Maybe it was God's flood in Noah's day, and the whole earth was covered in water, and all these animals died and got buried. Okay. There's polystrate fossils. So we mentioned it. When a tree falls in your yard, what happens to the tree? It disintegrates. Bugs eat it, birds eat it, wood rots. So if it takes millions of years for this fossil, this tree fossil to form, each one of these layers is thousands of years, so you get millions of years for this tree to fossilize like this. Why would that tree not have disintegrated? And what angle is that tree sitting at? What? Is it vertical or horizontal? No, horizontal is this way. It's vertical. When a tree falls, does it fall vertical? No. This thing was buried in an upright position, very unnatural position for it to be buried in, and it was buried with layers of dirt and mud that fossilized quickly. This could not have taken hundreds of thousands of years for this to happen. Here's another one, a guy walking up, touching this. This fossil went through several layers. You can look at them, you can see them, you can visit them, you can touch them. It's pretty cool. There's marine life that are fossilized in places that are far from the oceans. When we went to go visit my grandmother who lived in Ohio. Is Ohio near the ocean? I found fossilized sea life, coral, in their backyard in Ohio. That doesn't make sense, does it? How do you get ocean life in Ohio? You go to caves in Kentucky, and there's sea life that is fossilized in the caves in Kentucky. How would that happen? Well, one way it would happen would be the whole earth was covered in water. Scientists have found fossils of whales and other marine life in mountain sediments in the Andes. Huge mountains. There's whales fossilized on top of them, more than 5,000 feet above sea level. There is a whale graveyard in the Chile mountains. How did whales get on top of the mountains? Well, the mountains weren't so high. They rose up. God rose them up, and the earth was covered in water. Here's some more sea life. Trilobites, Ammonites, Hittites, Moabites. I have such a hard time getting those straight. Okay? We read what happened. When a flood happens, what happens to the ground around it? Does it go slow or is it sharp? It's sharp. If a flood comes and it washes a road away, it drops straight down, right? That's the way a flood works. It's not gradual. Erosion is gradual, right? This is the result of a flood. Look at the line. Look how sharply it's cut off. This is flooding that happened August 1st of 2016 in Rio Puerco. Flooding that happened that carved all that out, right? You see how sharp it is? So I'm skipping stuff for the sake of the kids and time. If you go somewhere like the Grand Canyon, have any of y'all ever been to the Grand Canyon? No? If you go to the Grand Canyon, you've seen pictures of it. Is it gradual or is it sharp? It's sharp. It's a drop-off. That's what a flood does. Evolutionists or scientists are now saying that Grand Canyon was not formed over tons of time, but it happened rather quickly with flooding. Noah's flood accounts for it. Mention the Pangea. This is the way the continents used to fit together. North America, Eurasia, South America, Africa, Antarctica, India. It fits together like a puzzle. This is real. This is not make-believe. This isn't evolutionists making this stuff up. You can put it together. Continental drift is real. Scientists used to say, well, our continents are drifting apart at this teeny tiny rate, so for us to get to be as far apart as we are today, you can take the distance, divide it by the speed that we're moving today, and come up with how many hundreds of thousands or millions of years it's taken. They've changed their tune. Now scientists are actually saying that something catastrophic forced us apart quickly, and now the movement has slowed way down. And the flood, as we read in Psalm 104, is a great example of it. Okay. Grand Canyon, there they are. I knew I had pictures. If it happened gradually over a long period of time, what would the walls of the canyon look like? It'd be sloped, wouldn't it? But these aren't sloped, these are carved. Almost there, guys. There's another picture of Grand Canyon. That's beautiful. Wouldn't it be cool to go there? I want to go to the Grand Canyon one day. You got the Badlands, you got the Scablands and other places. Here's the Scablands. This is up in the northwest part of the country. Quickly or slowly? Slow doesn't make sense. Something catastrophic happened in order to carve this out. And you can look at it. This is a view from above. You can see where the waters pushed through here and carved this land out. The European, Great Britain and France used to be connected. They got driven apart by a major flooding event. Scientists believe that. Tore into water. Catastrophic flood. A mega flood that they describe it as. 35 million cubic feet of water per second. That's insane. Okay, we mentioned the underwater sources. I'm trying to wrap this up. So, all of this to say, faith in God, faith in the Bible story is reasonable, it is rational, and it is logical. We do not believe in God in spite of the evidence, but we believe in God because of the evidence. You can look at your world today, and there's plenty of reason to believe there was a flood. You can look at your world today and you can see the scarring of the land. And it makes total sense why the land looks the way it did. We see water underneath the surface, and scientists are like, whoa, there's water underground. Well, we expect that to be true based on the Bible. You see mountains being raised and valleys being sunk down. The Bible makes that make sense. Evolution is what doesn't make sense when you look at the evidence. Yeah, any questions, any thoughts? We're done. I'm going to let y'all go. Okay, I'm sorry. I said too much, didn't I? It's okay. If y'all didn't see, he nodded his head yes. Okay? Guys, I appreciate it so much. Josh, would you want me to end with a prayer? Is there anything you want to tell them? Any messages you want to give them?
No, just thank you. Thank you to everyone who came, and thank you to Karen and Aaron. And they say that we're the guinea pigs, that they haven't really done this together before. But I think that this is something they should do a lot of, because it was just a great event. So thank you, guys.
I appreciate it. Guys, thank you for your attention. I'm going to let you have just a second. I understand that some of the stuff was way over some of your heads. I don't expect you to remember it all. If I spoke on this the way in my notes, the adults would be like, "Wait, that's way too much information. We can't remember it all." Don't remember it all. Remember something, okay? If it was the design we talked about last night, if it's that, hey, the Grand Canyon was carved out by the flood, remember something, okay? Remember something. Karen?
I was just gonna say that, for all the kids and any adults who want, there are some paper things back there about mealworms and snails.
Okay.
They're just on a little table.
If you want to take the papers home, the information sheet, is that what it is, about mealworms and snails, be glad for you to have it. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Karen. This would be a lot more boring if Karen didn't come. I don't get to go sit back there and hear and see it, but I know that she does an awesome job. Y'all come out talking about it. She gets to do the cool thing. She gets to travel the state talking to kids about this stuff. I'm jealous. So one of these days, I got to figure out a way to sneak in and watch it. You're doing one at Trussell School soon, aren't you? Remind me. I'll be there.
In October.
I can just let myself in. They can't tell me no.
There's one in Fossils this
Okay. So, guys, thank you again, okay? Thank you, parents, okay? We need to be teaching our kids this stuff, because whether we realize it or not, they're getting taught. And the voices of our world are loud. Let's say a prayer. Dear God, we thank you so much that you are an awesome God, as we talked about yesterday. You are a great creator. You made us, and you love us, and you have a plan for us. Help us to never forget that. We thank you for all these kids. Father, we pray that you bless them. We pray that you keep them safe, protect them from evil. Father, not just physical harm, but also protect their souls and their spirits. And Father, we thank you for their love for you. Father, we pray your blessings on them, and help us as adults to help guide them and lead them to know you and love you and strengthen their faith. Father, give us wisdom and strength as we meet other people who may not believe in you, to tell them about how great you are. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Again, anybody wants to go to the back and look at the stuff that's back there,